This is the Ielts listening test. You will hear a number of different recordings and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 parts. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet.
Section 1.
You will hear 2 students who have just returned to university after their summer vacation. Listen to Louise and Kerry talking about their vacation. First, look at questions 1 to 4. You will see that there is an example already done for you. For this question only, the conversation relating to the example will be played first.
Hi Louise, how was your summer vacation?
Oh, fantastic. I only got back from Europe yesterday.
Wow, that sounds exciting.
Yes, it was. How was your holiday?
Pretty quiet compared with yours. I just stayed around Cambridge.
Louise said that she had just got back from Europe yesterday, so the correct answer is Europe. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Hi Louise, how was your summer vacation?
Oh, fantastic. I only got back from Europe yesterday.
Wow, that sounds exciting.
Yes, it was. How was your holiday?
Pretty quiet compared with yours. I just stayed around Cambridge, but we're planning to go to Europe at the end of next term.
Oh, you'll have a great time. I really recommend it. How are you going to get around?
Well, we've thought about renting a car. Flying is far too expensive. What did you do?
We bought Eurail tickets and travelled around Europe by train.
Was it expensive?
No, not really. It cost us £203 for a Eurail Pass youth ticket.
I've heard of Eurail. What did that include?
Well, you get unlimited train travel in and between 17 European countries. It lasted for a month.
Gee, for £203, that sounds reasonable. Did you visit all of the 17 places?
Yes, all except for Ireland. We couldn't really understand why Ireland was included on the pass, but England wasn't.
Yes, that seems a bit strange. Did it include the trip from London to Paris in the Channel Tunnel?
No, unfortunately we had to pay extra for that train. But we did get a discounted fare because we're students.
Were there any other restrictions on the tickets?
Well, if you want to pay more or less money, you can choose another plan. There are 15 and 21-day plans, or 2 and 3 month plans. The only restriction for the youth ticket is that you have to be under 26.
That suits my friends and me. None of us are 26 yet. We went to school together.
Oh, you really have to do it. It's safe and easy and a great way to see the countryside. The weather was fantastic, and so were the people.
It sounds great.
Louise and Kerry go on to talk about travelling by train in Europe. As you listen to the rest of the conversation, answer questions 5 to 10. Before the conversation continues, read questions 5 to 10.
What was the best part of your trip?
The trains really gave us the freedom to plan our own holiday. We went to lots of places which were out of the way and met lots of local people. You know, small rural towns where trains are still an important form of transport.
We'd like to meet the local people. Did you do that easily?
Yes, the trains in Europe aren't like the commuter trains in London. People like to talk and have a chat on trains in Europe.
That's nice.
Yes, the train times were okay as well. Sometimes we had to get up early to catch the trains, which were crossing into another country, but most of the time we were satisfied with the timetables, very punctual.
Should we take an alarm clock?
Well, I would. Having an alarm clock made us sleep more comfortably. We knew that we'd wake up on time.
And were the trains safe? Did you travel at night?
Lots of students travelled at night because it saved having to pay for accommodation.
I hadn't thought of that.
Well, lots of others have thought of it. We preferred to stay in local pubs or student hostels because you could mix with the locals. The night trains were filled with British students.
It sounds as if you had a very positive experience. Is there anything you'd recommend we take or do?
Let me see. I can certainly tell you what not to take or do. Don't take much luggage. There just isn't very much room in the trains for big suitcases. A backpack or 2 small bags is better than 1 big bag. That way you can also get on and off the trains easily too.
I'll remember that. My mother always says to pack 1 week before you go on vacation, and then take half of it out the night before you leave.
That's good advice, especially when you're riding on cramped trains. The other thing is to be careful with your valuables. Lots of students had money and passports stolen, especially at night.
Did you have anything stolen?
No, but we met lots of people who did have things stolen. We all had money belts under our jackets.
I'll have to buy one of those.
Yes, you should. Or you can borrow mine if you like.
Oh, thanks. That'd be good.
The only other thing I'd advise you to do is to make sure you spend a reasonable amount of time in each country. We found that lots of students travelled too quickly, and they didn't have enough time to meet the locals and enjoy the food and the culture.
How long do you think you need in each country?
I can't say. It'll depend on who you meet and what you like to do, and of course the weather. It was so warm and sunny in some beachside places that we stayed for 4 or 5 days. In other towns, if it was very quiet or boring, we just stayed overnight.
I guess that's what's great about the train. You can come and go as you please.
Exactly. And it's cheaper and much more relaxing, not to mention safer. I don't think I could get used to driving on the right-hand side of the road.
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Section 2. You will hear a talk about keeping children safe on the Internet. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Thank you for coming. It's good to see so many of you interested in keeping your children safe on the Internet. What's in store? Well, firstly, I'm going to talk in general about some common sense ideas and rules for young ones using the computer. Then, I'll give you some information on free educational websites. Finally, we'll finish with question time. I'm sure most of you think that the Internet can be a frightening place in which to let your children roam loose. But let me remind you that it can also be a fountain of knowledge and education. The trick is to avoid the former and utilize the latter. There are programs available both in your local electronics supply shop and free to download that will keep your child safe to a certain degree on the World Wide Web. A popular one is Online Family Norris, which bars things like military and social websites. I wouldn't advise you to rely solely on a program to protect your family, though. As good as it is, you cannot abdicate your responsibility as a parent. I'm sure you all know that, or you wouldn't be here. When all is said and done, the best way to keep children safe is to educate them and keep an eye on them. For this reason, you should make sure the computer which your child uses is kept in a communal space, where you can look over their shoulder from time to time. It is paramount that you teach them never to divulge their proper or full name, and to never provide personal information, such as where they live or what their phone number is. Tell them that online friends must remain just that, online, unless they are supervised. It is difficult, I know, to teach children about the dangers of the world when they are so naive, so trusting and innocent. But without going into great detail, you must alert them to the possibility that the people they are chatting with may not be who they say they are. It's also sensible not to give them their own email address until they are old enough to use the internet safely. So, all communication from websites will go through you. When they are old enough to use social sites like Facebook and MySpace, teenagers need to know that whatever postings they put on the web will remain accessible forever. Nothing is ever really deleted there. And embarrassing pictures or remarks may come back to haunt them one day. For instance, when they apply for a job, they could jeopardize their chances, as the employer or human resources staff will look on the web to find out more about their potential employee, and they may be shocked by what they find there. Not the sort of stuff an applicant would want on his or her CV. It can also make them more vulnerable to bullying. Unfortunately, bullying on social sites is another thing to look out for, and I have to tell you, it's on the increase. It's a very difficult issue to deal with, but something that is more easily detected if the computer is kept in a family space. If we can put these negative issues aside, let's not forget that the internet is also a wonderful place for children of all ages. Teenagers may be mostly networking on social sites or completing research that they've been asked to do as part of their homework assignments, but younger children can get assistance with mathematics, spelling, and reading on a variety of free and paid-for sites.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
A good way for children to learn and have fun at the same time is the website mathtutor.com. They can practice mathematics on this site, no matter what their level, while they compete against other children from all over the world. And here's a fun way for primary school children to learn the spelling words for the week. It can be such a chore for some children. They just type them in and play games to learn them. What's that? The website? Oh, sorry. Yes, you'll need to go to spellcity.com for that. The one I'm going to tell you about now is one of the most practical sites that's popular with people of all ages. Children, or parents for that matter, can learn to touch type as they sing along with songs. And there's a variety of funny characters to help you enjoy yourself as you learn. In this day and age, typing is essential. Everyone should be able to type fast and accurately. So, go to beeb.co/typing and try it out. Don't just leave it up to the kids. Here's a site that parents can use to download worksheets to extend their children by giving them further practice. It's called coolresources.com, and I can really recommend it, particularly for middle school students. Now, are there any questions?
That is the end of Section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Section 3. In this section, you will hear two students discussing the early childhood tutorial they are going to present. First, look at questions 21 to 26. Now listen to the first part of the discussion and answer questions 21 to 26.
I don't suppose you've come up with an idea for our tutorial presentation, have you?
Well, as a matter of fact, I have. I thought we could talk about the obvious differences we see between the sexes as children grow up.
Do you mean the differences we see between males and females as a result of the way they are brought up?
No, I mean the differences that exist from birth.
That sounds like a lot of work, Rose.
Not really. Do you remember in our first early childhood lecture, we were given a list of differences which were observed in male and female babies and toddlers in the UK?
I wasn't here for the first 2 weeks of the semester, remember? I had problems getting my passport.
Oh, that's right. Well, it was really fascinating. A group of behavioural scientists in England selected 100 children to observe over a very long period, 20 or 25 years. They were brought up in families who treated girls and boys in the same way, no special treatment for either of the sexes. They observed their play and their reactions to various situations, set up little tests, I suppose.
How old were the children?
The first observations were carried out when the babies were only a few hours old. They concluded that girls were more sensitive to touch than boys at that early age.
How did they end up with that conclusion?
Well, the lecturer didn't go into detail. I think he just wanted to get our interest, whet our appetite. There were lots of tests and observations done from soon after birth, right through to their early 20s. I thought we could investigate some of the case studies and then present the results in the tutorial.
Well, that's a good idea, Rose. It'll be interesting, but it will also give us the chance to collect information for our end-of-term assignment as well.
It'll also be a good opportunity to check out the resources available in the library. I haven't had the chance to spend much time there yet. Have you?
The last 4 weeks have just been so busy. And of course, I had to catch up on the 2 weeks that I missed. I haven't had the chance either. I've heard that the library research staff are really willing to help out.
Well, we can find out if that's true or not. We'll need to make an appointment to see them. Apparently they're in high demand.
We only have 2 weeks to prepare for this tutorial, so I think we should definitely start as soon as we can. Let's see the tutor this afternoon and tell him about our plan. If he agrees, we can get started on our research.
Okay, I'll go and see the tutor. You can make a booking at the library.
Rose goes to the tutor's office to discuss the topic for their tutorial. Before listening to the rest of the conversation, look at questions 27 to 30.
Would it be possible to see Jim Clark, one of the early childhood tutors?
May I ask what it's about?
We have to get approval for our tutorial topics in EC 101.
Yes, I thought it might be about that. Unfortunately, Jim had to go to Sydney this week, but he has given me some specific questions to ask about the tutorials.
Oh, we were hoping to get started on our research. We've only got 2 weeks.
Don't worry. Jim's phoning in twice a day. If you give me the details, I can give you an answer by tomorrow morning.
That's great. We are planning to present some case studies that were undertaken by a group of...
Hang on. I just need a few short details. Let me see. I have to write down what the subject of the tutorial is.
Okay. I guess the topic is gender and when the sexes start to act differently.
So, is it about how male and female children are different? What can I write here, next to topic?
Well, what about how the sexes differ?
Okay, I'll put that down as your topic. Jim also wants to know the aim of your tutorial.
Well, there are two aims, I suppose. The first is to show how they differ, but the other point we want to make is that the differences are innate, not learned.
To show that differences between the sexes are innate, not learned. Right, that's the hard part. Now I need to know the date, time, and room of your tutorial.
It's in 2 weeks. Let's see. That'll be Tuesday the 26th at 11 a.m. We are in room B1203.
And do you need any AV material?
What does AV mean?
Audio visual. You know, TV, video, tape recorder, overhead projector, that kind of thing.
I hadn't thought of that. Guess we'll need an overhead projector. We haven't really started planning our tutorial yet. We just wanted to get initial approval from Jim.
Never mind. You can always cancel the projector if you don't need it. Jim will phone in the morning. Do you want to come and see me then? Or I can phone you if you like.
I have a lecture from 8 to 10 tomorrow morning, so I'll drop by after it finishes.
Right. I'll see you then.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Section 4. You will hear a talk given by a lecturer in the Art History department. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
In this lecture today, I'm going to introduce you to an American painter, Charles Willson Peale. You may be familiar with his portraits, but did you know that he never even saw a painting till he was a grown man? He was born in Maryland in 1741. His father died when he was 9, and the family struggled financially for the next few years, and Charles became a saddle maker's apprentice. One day, he went to Norfolk for supplies, and there he saw paintings for the first time. He thought they were so bad that he felt sure he could do better, so he decided to make painting his career. In 1766, he went to London to study painting with Benjamin West. Whilst there, he painted this portrait in 1768. See Slide 1, Pitt as a Roman senator. Notice how elaborately symbolical this portrait is. The symbolism arises, of course, from Pitt's famous speech to the British Parliament, where he draws an analogy between the ancient Roman Senate's view of a barbaric Britain and the prevailing European view of the time of a barbaric African continent fueling the slavery trade. Perhaps you didn't know that the Romans used Britons as slaves. But I digress. Back to Peale. He returned to America and in 1772 painted the first ever portrait of George Washington. See Slide 2. In 1773, he painted a group portrait of himself, his wife, mother, brothers, sister, his old nurse, and an unidentified baby. Just look at the slide. This painting is simply called the Peel family, and you can almost feel the exuberance of the family and their warmth towards one another. He enjoyed great success as a portraitist prior to the Revolution, and served with distinction in the Revolution. During this time, he became friends with George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson. After the war, he continued to paint, and, when his wife died in the 1790s, as a result of her 11th pregnancy, he remarried. He had 17 children in all, naming the sons after famous painters or scientists. Although perhaps best known for his portraits of famous people, Peel liked novelty. Look at this slide of his two sons, Raphael and Titian, life-size, climbing a narrow stairway. This painting, The Staircase Group, 1795, was exhibited in a doorway as a trompe-l'oeil, and it is said that it did, in fact, fool the eye of George Washington. Even as far back as 1772, we can see his desire for difference in Rachel weeping. It's a rather macabre portrait of his first wife crying over the death of one of their children, their daughter Margaret. I'd like to show you one more slide to demonstrate his innovative approach. This is a portrait of his brother, James, sitting at his desk at night, with only his face illuminated by a lamp. This was painted much later than the others, in 1822. You know, Peel believed anyone could learn to paint, and he taught painting to his brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, nephews, nieces, and other relatives. 4 of his sons, Titian, Rubens, Rembrandt, and Raphael, became painters, as did his brother James. Before I finish, I'd like to tell you a bit more about Peel. He was active in politics for several years, and throughout his life, he maintained a lively interest in many branches of science. He was also an inventor who gained patents for a fireplace, porcelain false teeth, and a new kind of wooden bridge. He collaborated with Thomas Jefferson on what was known as the polygraph, a kind of portable writing desk. But it wasn't any ordinary desk. This one could make several copies of a manuscript at once. He also wrote papers on a wide variety of subjects, from hygiene to engineering. Oh, and he also tried his hand at inventing a fairly primitive but innovative motion picture technique, new types of eyeglasses, and a velocipede, which is a precursor to the bicycle. Now, some of the original velocipedes had pedals and some didn't. You sort of scooted along on them using your feet. Unfortunately, I can't remember which type it was that Peel worked on. He's also remembered for his work as a naturalist. He established the first scientific museum in America, and he even invented his own system of taxidermy. For those of you who aren't sure what taxidermy is, it's the art of preparing, stuffing, and presenting dead animals so that they appear lifelike. He was also well ahead of his time in that he placed his animals in a simulated natural environment. His most magnificent exhibit, however, was the complete skeleton of an extinct mammal known as a mastodon, which he helped excavate. The event was memorialized in his extraordinary painting, The Exhuming of the Mastodon.
That is the end of Section 4.
like, share, subscribe the channel, and press the bell icon for further updates.